G'day and welcome to the Ball Boys AFL Fantasy Podcast. I'm your host, Mitch Casey, and today we are reviewing round 20, counting down the final month left in the AFL Fantasy season. Let's go!
Hodge has done it from nowhere. Hoisting the goal from inside the centre. Sheed from the boundary. Dusty.
G'day and welcome again to the Ball Boys AFL Fantasy Podcast. Today, we're reviewing round 20. You can find me on Twitter at Ball Boys Fantasy, and I'm joined by the finalist, Luke Rogerson, coach of the Mighty Oxlongs. How are you, mate?
Good, mate. I've only got one thing to aim at the moment, and that is the Content Creators Cup Championship, and I'm one win closer, but there's some teams putting up good scores, yourself included.
Myself included, but not good enough. Not good enough.
High standards over there at Mitchman.
It is very high standards, but I had a loss. Lost to Warn Dogs.
Warn's humming at the minute.
Massive score.
He's humming.
Massive score.
Watch out for him.
So he had the 2,500. I unfortunately only had the 2,471. What did you end up scoring in the end?
2,458, so just a little bit behind you there, but just enough to hold off DC in the end. It was pretty much the captaincy choice there with the ex-Meister taking on Sheasel that got me over the line.
Yes, so so you had the captaincy on the X-Man?
I did. You did as well, didn't you?
No, I didn't.
What do you mean? He was the obvious one.
Yeah, he was number 2 of my big boys, so obviously that was the one you went, and it would have served you well, but no. He was probably the difference between me this week. 156 he scored. Massive blow. A lot of the teams in the top 10, I think pretty much nearly everyone who had him captained him. So, look, my boys, they held on pretty well. Like I said, 24-71. No one really stinking up except for maybe Jai Caldwell, and Bont was a bit under par. But everyone else kind of did their thing. But yeah, just lacking that captain and lacking that 156, obviously. So it hurts.
Sam de Koning didn't play in the ruck. I didn't watch the game, but he didn't have a hit out. So
no, it was all blitz halves.
So that tells me that had that not been the case, I reckon the ex-Meister could have had maybe another 10, 15 hit outs on top of that had it been what it's been the past
The thing
few
that
weeks.
really shit me off was not just the stoppage points that he got, but the fucking marks that fell into his lap. Like, some of the ones that should not have been there. And I had number 2 of my big boys. I was fully prepared for a big score. But it's like, okay, 130, 156. It's just that extra little bit that really hurt.
Oh, good things happen to good people.
Yeah.
Me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Should we talk Spongy?
Let's get Spongy. Who do we have for Spongy of the week?
Pineapple under the sea.
SpongeBob SquarePants!
Absorbent and yellow and porous is he.
SpongeBob SquarePants!
Now, you filled these ones in, and
did.
you got a name from a bit of a throwback.
Look, I got it out of the box here because I thought that the obvious thing would just be to go the ex-Meister, but that's what everyone's expecting. But the reason that I've just given Matty Roberts a little shout-out here...
Roberts.
If you go back and have a look at his score on the weekend, he ended up going close to 130. Might have been
135, I want to say, or something like that.
It's the way he did it. It was like 35 points in the first quarter, 35 points in the second quarter, bang, bang. Just the consistency of it was what I loved. And that's
commanding the pill.
You don't want to ride the roller coaster.
138.
You don't want to ride the roller coaster. So he's just giving you that consistent, just above 30 every quarter. So I saw it as spongy behaviour, getting plenty of marks in there as well. So good on you.
Yeah. Matty Roberts, back-to-back tons, 138. He's gone 36 touches in a loss.
What a prestigious award. It's probably because it was a loss.
Yeah, probably because it was down that end. But, massive score for him. So a bit of a throwback. Would have loved him in my team this week, that's for sure.
Fuck yeah. Now, I reckon you can get behind the camel of the week, and there's not often where it's...
My hump, 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 my hump.
Marcus Bontempelli, with a dual medal here with top knot himself, Hayden Young.
yeah.
I'll talk on Hayden Young because I was going up against a few teams have him in the top 10. My matchup, Warney had him in the Content Creators Cup. And first 3 quarters, killed it. Great. Tackling all over the place. What do you have? Like 12 tackles in the end.
Loves it tough.
Loves it tough.
We know he loves
it. It
that.
was fucking tough. That
West Coast came.
The West Coast Freo game there was fights, there was suspensions, there was fines given out everywhere, and and he was in there. He was in, head down, got a bit dirty, but the game was kind of wrapping up in that third quarter, and then the last quarter, he just parked the bus.
Gross.
0 points in the final quarter. And, once it all kind of smoothed out, he was not scoring. He'd done his bit and was happy with that. But that's not good enough for us fantasy coaches. We need to put the foot down on the throat.
Correct. And you said Jewel Award this week with the Bont.
Yes.
The Bont has 2 modes, and one of them is the most... It's camel mode personified. He just gets his humps out and says, no, I'm parking it. I'll just go sit forward for a little bit. And if you get a couple of goals, hey... Mickey Mouse.
Yeah,
but
you're great.
If you don't...
Yeah, it doesn't look good. He cruises around. I had this comparison, I thought, the other day, because I was thinking, who's the best player in the AFL?
Mm-hmm.
I think the best comparison I can come up with is Nick Dacos is Steph Curry and Bontempelli is LeBron James. When he wants to, Bont can he can turn it on. He's just awesome. He's got the highest ceiling. He's just bigger. But Nick Dacos is the guy you love to watch, always gives it 100% and just exciting skills. What do you think about that?
I think I can get behind that. Yeah. Steph can sometimes be not really thirsty. Sometimes he can look a bit lax. But I like the comparison.
Yeah,
I think we're good.
But Bont, we wanted to be on, and he was not on against Sydney.
Speaking of people who were not on...
And the winner of the Norm Smith medal...
You're an embarrassment to what you do, mate. You're an embarrassment.
Bogs and Flogs, give us the bog for the first game, the Friday night, Carlton versus Port Adelaide, Luke.
There wasn't a heap of boggy behaviour here, but if you do have Nick Newman, he scraped you to a ton there, and that was sort of the highest sort of fantasy relevant score.
Well, the thing was, and I know you got the bog here, but
please take
the bog was his third quarter. He had 57 points in the third quarter. 57 points. He was at 94 at 3/4 time. He finished with a ton.
So he could easily get both awards.
He could have got both awards. I was so frustrated. He's actually a really good player. I was watching him very closely because he was my unique in that Friday night matchup, and he tackles up there with some of the best of them. He's a Hayden Young level tackler. He's great at it, but just faded that last quarter 6 points. So very disappointing. But you can't play with a ton. But I thought personally, as a guy who has him as a pod, I thought we were on for a big one. The flog for this one goes to Connor Rozee, who very similarly. 5 points in that final quarter, but he wasn't already on a great score. He was on 70, so he got the 75. So he gets the flog award for people who had him. I thought it was going to be Butters. The tag moved around a bit in that game, actually. Started on Butters, then went to Rozee, and kind of, back and forward.
Definitely goes to show it is tough to pick it, especially when you've got good players, multiple good players in the team. No surprises here. North Melbourne, Geelong, it's the Big X. And I already said it could have been even bigger if... Bliss Ups didn't play as much time in the ruck.
I think he missed a goal too.
But he started with a 17-point first quarter. You would have been licking your lips at that point.
Oh, I was loving it. I was like, okay, could be on here, could be safe. And then
he's pretty much gone 50-50, just bang.
Yeah.
That's cooked.
And I outed myself here, but I text you at 3/4 time telling you I need you to move the captaincy onto your red dot. Activate the loophole. I needed any moz that I could get.
And I was busy.
I was saying, real busy.
Flat chat.
I was tweeting out, this game's going to hurt. Just trying to throw anything against the wall.
You're the worst.
I didn't even realise that last week I said he was going to have his highest score for the season, trying to moz him on the Friday Night Live show. I was doing my absolute best to moz this man.
You should have just gone back to Old Faithful, just tweet moz.
But it didn't fucking matter. And that's why he gets the flog, because he fucked me. He bent me over and he fucked me this weekend.
Oh, goodness.
Because it was the single reason why I think that my shot of the car is very much slipping away.
Well, it sounds like you were fucked by multiple people on the weekend, because it's becoming a theme. Gold Coast, Brisbane, who was our flog in that one?
Well, the flog in this one, mostly because there wasn't many actual floggery behaviour, but Josh Dunkley, more so, and again, it's very selfish, but he scored just extremely late in this game. Fourth quarter, 46 points. I thought, okay, survived another round here without Josh Dunkley. And then I swear I looked at it at full time. He was on 119. And I checked back later and he was on 128. Must have kicked a goal right at the end of the siren, the final siren. So that just pissed me off. And
You can
so
be selfish, mate.
He gets a flog
It's your
for that.
show.
Yeah.
Zork was back to his old way. He's been a little bit quiet by his lofty standards in the last few weeks, but he's back to his big ways. I think it was 140 almost, wasn't
He's
it?
gone back to back 130s. So.
Oh!
131, 139.
I'm thinking too far back, but
Yeah.
good on you, Zorks.
Yeah, no, he is up and about firing at the moment. So, yes, big 12 marks, and that one gets it done. St Kilda versus Essendon, best on ground. We've got it here for the guy who I traded Tristan Sherry to. At least he went well in Rowan Marshall.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he also had, I think he had a big second quarter as well with like a 65-point quarter or something like that. But the flog on this one goes to Zach Merritt. And we're going to have some conversations about Zach Merritt.
Yeah.
Because he could very easily have been up there in the Camel Award as well, because he and Essendon as a whole, they're not playing very well. He had 97 points, and I'm pretty sure he was another culprit of having a very quiet final quarter, very quiet final half. I think he had 20 points or something like that in the second half. So he gets a flog for captaining his team to a really shit performance and letting his fantasy managers down by not scoring a ton after getting 70 plus in the first half.
Yeah, and after starting the season on fire and pre-bye looking like a guy that we'd all have to have, I mean, their scores around the 100, but it's underwhelming when we know what Zach Merritt can do, isn't it?
Yeah, it's not the best, so he might appear in another segment later on, I reckon. Let's talk Melbourne versus GWS. Who's the best on ground here?
This guy has been the turnaround of the season from the buys. Lockie Whitfield is, if you don't have Lockie Whitfield, he's just destroying you.
Absolutely massive.
And if you traded him before the buys, I don't blame you.
Yeah,
But
we were saying don't trade him in at that time.
Yep. Hopefully you've been able to get back on him because he went massive again.
Massive. So, yeah, huge in-form player. The flog in this one, again, not too much. I've given it to Max Gawn. Not that many of us would have traded him in or have him still, but just wanted a bit more hope. I thought there was a potential that maybe he could be one of the best uniques to finish the season, being like the highest averaging player for the large portion of the year.
Yeah.
But it's just against a relatively decent matchup in GWS. You would have hoped he scored better. I just don't think I'm confident enough to trade him in, despite obviously what we know he can do when you've got other rucks going as well as they are. Freo versus West Coast, the derby.
We don't fancy ourselves as mathematicians, but we were crunching a little bit of optimistic math on this game. And just in free kicks against, Brayshaw cost himself 15 points.
Yeah,
but
so he had 5 free against.
In addition to that, some of those came off poor tackling technique. So tackles that went high or tackles that held on too long. So let's add a couple more 4-pointers in there.
Yep.
This could have been the prophet.
Yeah, I mean, it could have been a massive game. He kicked a goal early and was getting in amongst the tackles. So he had 7 tackles. Could have had double-digit tackles quite easily.
There's one point where
he
Harley
had
Reid
36 touches.
Harley Reid got away from about 3 times, and then he decided to push Harley Reid
Yeah,
back.
and that's why Harley Reid gets the flog, because they were going at it in this game.
Yeah.
And I don't know, this might upset a few West Coast fans, but he gets a bit of extra special treatment, I reckon.
Oh, you reckon?
I reckon. You see him fall
Prepare for
over.
the hate mail.
You see him fall over. Oh, whistle, and then whoever's pushing him, they get the whistle. I think Andy Brayshaw got stiff a few times, and it went the other way, and no free kick for Andy Brayshaw. So
I reckon Harley goes hard, but
I like him as a player. I think
he goes hard. So
I like him as a player, but he's a bit of golden child about him. I don't know. There's something
you just
else.
wish he was at Richmond.
I do. Fair enough. I absolutely do. But Andy was on the stiff end of a few of those whistles, and that cost him a lot of points, which, again, as my unique trade-in, pissed me off.
Collingwood play the Richmond Witches hats, and we expected Dacos to make the most of it. And that first quarter, 18 touches or something. We were just hoping that just kept on
Dominated.
kept on going. It slowed down a little bit, but I think he still put up a 125, 130.
Yeah, they tried to throw a few different taggers at him. I think our boy Campbell, he had a good go.
Everyone had a go, but he just doesn't stop moving, does he?
Campbell seemed like he actually did this decent job, unlike Baker in the first half. The flog for this one, I'm giving it to a pair of Tigers.
Okay.
For not stepping up.
Yeah.
Liam Baker and Shea Bolton, these guys in our forward line with the shit that's there, Shea Bolton should be a fucking option. And he's just not, because Richmond suck so much. But Shea, he's a mid-80s guy. He's got a ceiling on his day, but he just 60, 50, 60. He's got a ton in there, but then 50, 60, 60. We should be looking at this guy versus North Melbourne this week and going, licking our lips, here's a good guy to bring in at F7. Like on any year, that would be an option, but it's just not enough. It's not putting their hand up. And so I'm going to give them the flog for just wasting the the forward spot that they've got there. So, yeah, not good enough for those boys.
Sydney Western Bulldogs, I mean, Bont was the flog, which stands to reason, but the guy that profited was Adam Treloar. And this is a tough one because leading into him having that tight calf, we're advocating for let's try and get Treloar in.
So big on him going
You
into
can't
this,
ignore him anymore. And it's back to that point where if you've got Adam Treloar, he's just a perfect pod.
And this was
for a
the tough
Dunkley
matchup. Like, this was Sydney. His guy's 125 in a matchup where Dunkley went the week before 60 plus.
He's thirsty in his own way.
He is.
He's
40 touches.
If there's an opportunity to have a touch, he'll have a touch. But I tell you what,
Am I right in saying that he's still the leading disposal getter?
He'd have to be
averaging for the comp. Yeah.
The other thing too is if he has a chance to have a shot at goal, that bloke ain't.
He'll take it. Yeah,
he'll break 50. He's gonna have a shot. So he's a thirsty operator and a guy that we want to consider getting in our teams.
Yeah, absolutely. Adelaide versus Hawthorn, where Hawthorn put the smackdown on Adelaide in this game, but
I've been
best on ground.
I've generously put this as Lairdy for you because I think going into that last game, you would have been puckered up like a snare drum and just a little nervous. Lairdy as a pod, is he going to come through for you? And
he had the corky last game.
He did. He could have. Your round could have been dog shit if he had gone poorly, but he didn't. He went 118. So
Laird could have been like a really great unique for me. Like he had in the last 3 weeks, he's gone 113, 97, and 133. And that 97, he had 98 at 3/4 time.
Ew.
So if he didn't bloody get that corky and spend time on forward and on the bench in that last game, he could have had a 3-round average well up there. But no, he's done all right. And with the Geelong matchup this week, hopefully he will continue that at least for one more week. The flog here just goes to Matthew Nixon and Keezy for not giving him the keys to the midfield. Ruined our joke and also ruined the fantasy scoring for anyone who jumped on him. It was always risky, but yeah, obviously didn't work out for those who took the risk.
Awesome.
All right.
You've done some hard yakka, mate. You want to talk strategy?
Yeah, I want to talk strategy, and it's this time of year. We've got 4 weeks left.
Yep.
Right. So and this is something that I think sometimes gets lost when we talk about fantasy is we can look at averages and say, okay, this guy averages this and this, but on any given week, things can go one way or the other way. And, say someone hits a high score and a low score in 2 different weeks, their average looks fine, but you get a tale of 2 different halves. But at the end of the year, the closer we get to that final week, the more important it is to just really trying to hit those ceiling scores. So the last 4 weeks, we're going to be chasing ceiling here. And what I've done is I've come up with I've collated some data.
Nice, mate.
Very use of the word. Very good. For all players in all positions, well, not all players, but all the best players in each position.
Yep.
And seen how many times they've hit the ceiling scores. Now, I've defined it differently for different positions.
Okay.
So defenders, we're defining a ceiling score as 120 plus. Now, there's a few players that have hit that in the since the bye round, so round 12, multiple times. The guys who have hit it multiple times are Lockie Whitfield, 6 times since round 12. He's hit 120 plus.
We barely had 6 rounds.
That's absolutely huge. The next best is Tom Stewart, and that's been very recently as well. He's had it 3 times. There's been a few players that have had it twice. Harry Sheasel's had it twice. Nick Martin's had it twice. Dan Houston has had it twice, and Trent Rivers has done it twice.
Those last 2 are interesting.
So those last 2 are very interesting. They're the cheapest of the bunch, but also the guys that are very yo-yo-y. We always know this about Dan Houston, but there's a reason that you can still... It's risky, obviously, and it's the only when you can only afford that, and I suggested that to a few people last week, and it didn't come out. It's a fucking yo-yo.
It's so bad.
But these guys can get it done.
Yeah.
The other guys that have done it once in that time are Nick Dacos, Jack Sinclair, Nick Newman, Jordan Clark, and Luke Ryan. And the last time I did it was round 12, so they only just made it with this criteria. So kind of almost don't count those 2. And then Ed Richards did it this last week. So some interesting names that I think aren't on that list. Someone like Nick Dacos only the one time I thought was very interesting. Nazai Wangini Miller didn't make that list. Max Holmes didn't make that list there either. So a few players that you could potentially have there, but haven't really been getting done when it comes to ceiling. And like I said, those Freo guys, Luke Ryan and Jordan Clark, the last time they did go 120 plus was round 12. So it's been a long time for them to make the risk there. From this list, are there some players here that you like a surprise to see that you maybe feel like, I don't know, you can chase ceiling with some of these guys, or some guys that you think you'd expect those numbers to grow the last 4 weeks?
To me, Stewart, Sheasel and Whitfield, have them in your team.
Yeah, they're locks.
You must have these guys in your team. Houston and Trent Rivers are the other two guys that you mentioned that have gone, and Nick Martin there have gone twice.
Nick Martin was also one of those ones that he did it in round 12, so kind of just...
And then the other one would be the big 150, wouldn't it?
That was the one where he had a 66-point last quarter.
To me, those guys at the moment feel more like the Hail Mary.
Yeah.
They don't feel like a guy that I'm even entertaining trading in this week. It's
Agreed.
It's like last 2 rounds, it's last 1 round where you just go, fuck, I don't think I can beat my matchup in my league. I'm just going to go balls to the wall, or I'm ranked just outside the top 1,000, and that's my goal, or whatever it is. Those guys appeal to me in that way. But with sort of still, what do we got? 4 or 5 rounds to go. Is it 4 rounds?
4 rounds to go. Yeah.
4 rounds to go. I'm still looking for those safer guys at this stage.
Yeah. The thing that really stood out to me here was Nick Dacos has only done it once in that since that period. So, and that was literally this round. So up until this round, he hadn't done it since the bye rounds.
Yeah.
So to me, there's a lot of question marks about some potential tags coming up soon. So to me, this, like looking at this data, it suggests to me that trading him out is definitely a play.
You'd have to be pretty luxurious, but you're right. I mean, Carlton, Sydney, Brisbane.
Yeah. I mean, I think he gets a tag over the next 2 rounds. The last 2, I think it's a bit of a coin flip whether he does get a hard tag, but Brisbane at least is a tougher matchup. Melbourne tagged him last time. Last game of the year, maybe they've just given up by then. But you never know. So I think it's a definite play. The other thing I think, again, just looking at this, the Freo boys, Hayden Young also wasn't on this list as well. So I think all those Freo boys, because they haven't done it since round 12, I think they can also go at this point because, again, we're looking for those guys that can potentially give you that 120 plus in those positions there. Let's go to the midfielders, and this is a slightly higher criteria, so 130 plus for the big dogs here. The guys who have done it multiple times. Errol Goulden and Lachie Neale are the only 2 players that have done it 3 times since round 12, which is,
the
again,
Lachie Neale one is interesting.
Very surprising. Lachie Neale, he's gone massive.
When Lachie Neale is allowed to do whatever he wants, Lachie Neale can have days like that with his eyes closed. And
he's going to win a fucking Brownlow again, and I'm going to hate it and curse the Brownlow yet again.
The trouble there is that if any team does decide to pay him attention, he's susceptible to.
He is. So in that time, he's had a 50 and a 69.
Yeah.
He's also had a 128 and a 129. So 2 scores where he nearly makes the criteria again.
He's thirsty on his day.
So yeah, that's a big
What's
one.
their run look like?
Solid. I think solid to good. I think they've got one tough matchup against the Giants, but the rest all good. Yeah, so Saints, Giants, Collingwood, Essendon. So 3 out of those 4 are pretty good. Tag-wise, I mean, Saints don't have Windhager playing. Giants will tag him.
I reckon he could be an option coming into round 23 if you wanted a pod guy that could give you a ceiling score and you're not happy with one of your middies, maybe
Collingwood
a matchup.
Game.
Potentially a Collingwood game, eyeing that off.
Yeah, I could definitely see that. The guys who have done it twice, you've got Josh Dunkley, Marcus Bontempelli, Andrew Brayshaw, Sam Walsh, Zach Butters have all done it twice. So some people getting a bit frustrated with Butters and Walsh. Like, they've still hit some ceiling scores in that time. So definitely maybe someone where you can get a bit more patience to. The surprising one here is that Adam Treloar has only done it once, and that was that 149. Now, he's had a few 120s, so not quite meeting the criteria that I've sort of set out here. But he's been getting it done. Like, he's, I think, the second highest averaging player in the midfield for the season. He gets it done with high floor more than anything.
Sure.
Now, he's done a few 140s this year, but in that recent time, there's only been the one over the 130, and that was against Geelong. So again, something to keep in mind. Some other players that have done it. Rory Laird has gone 130 once, just missed it more recently as well. Jack Steele has done it. Connor Rosie, Noah Anderson, and Hugh McCluggage. So there's 3 Lions in that list. So obviously the Lions are humming at the moment. Noah Anderson is an interesting one because we know he has a ceiling.
Yeah. We'll talk about Anderson's upcoming run as well.
We will. And Connor Rosie, the 1 to Zach Butters 2. Now, a lot of people would have traded Butters over Rosie last week, but could you trade someone like a Connor Rosie at this point now? Because he has been disappointing.
Yeah, definitely last couple of weeks. I mean, 2 weeks ago, he didn't play the last quarter, am I right in saying that?
Yep.
And then, obviously, coming into that game against Carlton, you're kind of thinking, oh, what's going to happen here? So, Sydney, tough matchup as well.
Sydney this week, yeah.
So, I reckon it's definitely something that you could entertain, especially if you can quite easily manage to get him to one of those guys that we talked about that just have
His
the
price is a
monsters.
bit more up there now, $8.50, so
It's not going to cost too much to get him across to...
still a little bit to get those like Dunkleys and Treloar types. All right, let's go to the rucks.
Yes.
Only one player has done 130 twice since round 12, and that's Rowan Marshall. And that's why I think he is going to be the R1 for the season. Even Max Gawn has only done it once since then. I know he's injured and missed a few. Tristan Sherry's done it once, but he has had 2 games where he scored 129, so 1 point away. So if you're being a bit kind there, he effectively has done it 3 times. And then a whole bunch of players have done it once. So Tim English, Brodie Grundy, Nank, and Darcy Cameron have all gone 1 time over 130. So I think, to me, it's fairly comfortably Marshall and Sherry, the clear top 2, in my opinion, when it comes to the rucks.
With the big X-Master, am I right? So they've got Richmond coming up this week. Am I right in saying
Yes.
that Nank was just a
Nank's back.
concussion?
Yeah,
Okay.
I think they've confirmed that he's
And I'm guessing
pretty much good to go.
he's going to be a lot harder, of course, to score against in terms of his hit-outs.
Yeah, against.
Would
I mean, who did we even ruck on the weekend? Was it Samson Ryan? Or was he injured?
Would you even entertain, if you were in a great spot, trading Sherry to Marshall off for 155, or is it just insanity?
I wouldn't do Sherry to Marshall. I'd do whoever you got in the other ruck position to Marshall.
So did
Yeah.
English. English was your pick a couple of weeks ago to be the top averaging.
Look, and I got him on the week that he did that 130, but now he's had some of those good matchups. It's tougher now. So from this point on,
Okay.
I don't think it's going to be as friendly. And we needed English to go bigger against Geelong and do what Sherry did, but he couldn't capitalise and make the most of that matchup like Tristan did. The forwards is interesting because
Yeah.
I made the target lower here. So 110. We're just looking for a 110.
Just happy for mediocrity. we said mediocrity at the Ball Boys.
Let's look at the big 4 here. Sam Flanders, 5 times.
Whoop.
Killing it.
Yeah.
Jai Caldwell, 4 times. Killing it.
Let's go.
Zorko, 4 times. Killing it. Isaac Heaney, once.
Yeah, he has.
Once since round 12, he's gone over 110.
Now that he knows he's ineligible for the Brownlow,
Yeah.
he's just parked the
Very
pass.
frustrating.
I
So
mean, Sydney have been a little bit in that same period. Sydney have been a little bit.
they're falling over, aren't they? Here, they're kind of.
Hey, here's my theory. I reckon, and this is speculation, but often those teams who dominate that first half of the year and get them into like a position where they can't be caught in first place, they put in like a decent block of training around this time of the year.
Really?
This is actually a thing. Geelong used to do this when they were dominating as well, and so you'd see.
Oh, just fucking tire them out.
Well, you just see this like it's like almost like a mini preseason go because Sydney don't give a fuck right now.
Yeah.
Sydney care. So I'm not saying that is happening, but I'm saying that teams in the past have had this patch where they've got off to this flying start and then they put in a heavy block of training. It impacts their performance, and then they come into the finals looking cherry ripe. So
You reckon they're gonna correct that over the next few rounds?
Well, yeah, like I sort of was going to get to is the fact that doesn't matter for us fantasy coaches. Like, we want them performing now.
Yeah.
But maybe just a little explanation, hey? I don't
Okay.
know.
Well, I mean, in that time, Errol Gordon's done it 3 times, and that was 130,
Big
not
EG's
110.
a
So
he's a beast.
yeah, not too many excuses there. I think I can give him. But Dylan Moore, he's done 3 times as well, and Brian Myers has done it twice.
Yuck.
So those are really the top 6. The only other player who's done it multiple times is Ben Keys. And those were in back-to-back games. Obviously, one was when he did go into the midfield. He did kick 5 goals in one of them as well. No other player has gone over 110 more than once in that time. So to me, it kind of seems like there's a consensus top 6, and that is Flanders, Caldwell, Zorko, Heaney, Moore, and Myers. But Myers, I just feel he's a flip of the coin any given week on what you're going to get. So some options that you could potentially look at to be if you wanted to go with an F7. You've got players Mason Wood, Charlie Curnow, Joe Danaher, our boy Tom Powell, Matt Kennedy, Jai Simpkin, Luke Jackson, and Zach Fisher. So there's 8 players that have all gone over 110, but they've all only done it once. So picking them on their day is very difficult. There's no frequency of ceiling here.
That's yuck.
But there's a few different players. A lot of them, like key forwards, a couple of half-backers there in someone like a Powell and Fisher, even a midfielder in Jai Simpkin and Kennedy when he got it, he was playing in the midfield. But again, their role is a little bit more up and down, especially Kennedy. And ceiling is not even really there, even though they are playing probably the best role of the lot. So, yeah, I think this just made that top 6 feel a little bit more clear to me, at least. But let's maybe chop some players.
Yeah.
That was in sync.
That was good.
Yeah, well done. All right. Talk to me. What are your thoughts? And I've got question marks against all of these players because it's just that time of the very decisive. Can we trade Zach Merritt? And listen to my reasoning. So he, like I said, hasn't gone over 120 since round fucking 7.
Yep.
The team's doing horribly. Like Essendon, I don't know if you saw that much of that game on the weekend, but it was shit. They're coming up against Freo, which has been a tough team to score against for midfielders. Gold Coast, which has been easier, but then Sydney and Brisbane. So 3 out of the next 4, I would say, are tough, especially Sydney and Brisbane, but Freo's no slouch either. And yeah, just that lack of ceiling. I don't know if he's going to hurt you if you trade him out and you try and go for one of those players who've got a big ceiling.
Isn't that a crazy thing to say about Zach Merritt, the lack of ceiling? To me, there's like bigger priorities. I don't know if that's just the way I'm feeling in my team, but at the moment, I've got like some of those defenders up as a higher priority than Merritt. But I am in the position where Nick Dacos is in my midfield, so I'm going to look to trade like a Hayden Young to Treloar or Dunkley or something like that. So it's a little bit unique, but I can definitely see that on the basis of the last couple of rounds, the difference between Merritt and Dunkley or Merritt and Treloar is 30 points.
Yeah, and it's that every week nearly at this point. So he's got his 5 weekly average is last 5 101. Someone like Errol 110, Brayshaw 109, Tom Green 112. Some of these other guys in the midfield, you got last 5 average. Dunkley 119, Treloar 118, Lachie Neale 115, Steele 112. Like he's given up 10 plus points a week every week to these guys.
And that's an average. That's not even accounting matchups and kind of targeting that as well.
I mean, Dunkley's got a 60 in that last 5 average.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
What do you see with the defenders? So Jordan Clark and Hayden Young are on the next on the list.
Yes.
In my mind, it's really, you've got to work out who you're trading to. So if you've got Jordan Clark or Hayden Young and you don't have Lachie Whitfield,
it's the easiest trade in the year.
Exactly. Like that's the trade that you're making because you're looking at 30, 40 points.
Well, we talked about those guys before that you said are must-haves, like Whitfield, Sheasel, Stewart, I think are must-haves, essentially, in the defence. So if you don't have any of those 3, getting one of those Freo boys to one of them, massive, easy decision. I think you have to do it.
Yep.
After that, it gets a little bit less clear-cut. I mean, Sinclair I quite like. Newman, I think his runs coming up is solid. But after that, like, there's not a whole lot of confidence in terms of trading them to someone that's going to be a whole lot better.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like a guarantee. I mean, like, Jordan Clark has been underperforming, but, like, let me read his scores to you. So, 95, 88, 87, 98, 104, 86, 90. Once you go past Sheasel, Whitfield, and Stewart, any of those guys can give you that score.
Yeah.
So, you're not guaranteed like you would be if you're trading.
Like a midfielder or something like that. Yeah.
So
I think if there's certain players you can have a look at, you're doing that. Would you trade one of the Freo boys, so either Jordan Clark and, well, first of all, I should ask, who do we trade first out of Clark and Young? And would you trade either of them before you trade a Nick Dacos?
I'd trade them both before I traded Nick Dacos.
Okay.
If you'd asked me at 3/4 time on the weekend, it might have been Jordan Clark. But when Hayden Young had a 0-point quarter, Jordan Clark had a 40-point quarter.
Yeah. I think it's a better matchup as well for Hayden Young than it was for Jordan Clark. The fact they scored the same, to me, is a knock on Hayden Young.
Currently, Hayden Young's been traded out of my team. Pains me to say, but that's what's currently happening.
If we look at the 5-game average, again, I'd like to just use this to sort of get a gauge of what's the kind of mark you're looking for. But Jordan Clark is averaging 93 in his last 5. Someone like a Sinclair is averaging 105. So if you could do that kind of a trade, I think that is pretty solid. Nick Dacos in that time is averaging 103. Now, obviously, it's boosted by the score that he got, but he can do that. And before that, he had 280s in a row. But he's still close enough to those other guys, like him going 103 the next best, you've got,
The
someone
tough run.
like a Wang who's 102, Sinclair 105, Nick Martin's 101. Like, I don't know if you're getting a huge leg up by trading a Nick Dacos to any of those guys, even if he's being tagged, because like those last couple of rounds, 87, 85, he was tagged in both of those games.
Yeah, the tough run's definitely something to look at, but like you said, if you don't have, if you have all of those top line guys week to week, you might lose out on that one.
Yeah, and the pressure's on Collingwood as well. Like they need to win. I don't know if I have my doubts that the days of Nick Dacos getting tagged to like a 60 are going to be there. I think his tag games are more like 80. And I think if you can live with that and you get his pop scores when he gets loose, I don't know, I think it's more chance to hurt you. But again, there's a bit of risk reward there. Other person that I put on this list is very much different to him being in form.
Yeah, it's a bit harsh.
But looking at his run, Tom Green is a sneaky one that if you wanted to trade out of a player who has a tough run coming up to separate yourself, make yourself a bit unique, I actually don't mind it. He's got Hawthorn this round, which is a red team. Then he's got Brisbane. Then he's got Freo. Then he's got the Bulldogs. All three of those teams have got really good firing midfields at the moment. And you're getting a few players coming back in, like Cogs is coming back. I don't know. And he was one of those players that didn't appear in that, over 130 in the last several rounds. He's had a few 120s, but nothing huge that's really stung you.
Yeah, last 6 rounds he hasn't dropped under 100, and 3 times he's hit 120.
So I mean, he's in great form, like he is, but he's
But the 2 games before that run that he's gone on, he played Hawthorn for a 77.
Yep.
And then he played Port Adelaide, we know is a tough team, for 88. So yeah, maybe there's some data there to suggest that with the tough teams, he might struggle a little bit.
Yeah, so here's the case of, okay, do you project forward? And like the run for Giants, I think, is probably one of the worst for midfielders. Adelaide, after this week, so Adelaide play Geelong this week, and after that, it's all red. But from this week on, with the Hawthorn matchup with the Giants, they have a pretty tough run. No greens in their 4 matchups to finish the year. So, yeah, I think you're going to see him drop below what he has been doing, which has not been massive anyway. So he's an interesting one. And then the last one, which didn't make the screen here, but Tim English. Are we bothering with a trade of Tim English to someone like a Tristan Sherry or Rowan Marshall?
I'm not going to be looking at it this week.
He's got Max Gawn.
He does, but I need to get rid of Hayden Young.
Yeah, so do you think that's a very luxurious move?
I think it's a little bit more luxurious. I think there'll definitely be other things that people potentially want to do.
So you get rid of those Freo defenders before you got rid of an English?
Oh man, look, I think so. I mean, the Freo defenders go Essendon and Geelong. So and Hayden Young's actually
Essendon gave up a fair bit last week, I think.
Maybe I'm being too snappy with Hayden Young. Literally, I'm a good quarter away from not even having this conversation about Hayden Young. Which kind of sucks.
Yeah, and if Fife gets suspended and they keep that 1 match ban, then there's some more midfield time for him. I don't know if
the juicy thing is that I can trade him to a midfielder. That to me is what's appealing to me.
Yes, agreed. Agreed. If you can get someone like a Dunkley or Treloar, like that would feel really nice.
Yeah.
So yeah, things to monitor. I'd almost trade out Clark before I traded Young if Fife is gone.
Yeah.
Because like you said, he was a quarter away from having a massive score.
Yeah, and the reverse for
Clark could have had a real sucky one.
Oh, man.
So very, very interesting. Let's head into the trade-in targets and who are we going to play? I'll get these guys to play on our field. Defenders. Number 1, Tom Stewart. Now, I don't have Lockie Whitfield on this list, or I don't have Harry Shears on this list.
Get him in.
But they've been in. They've been number 1 before this week. So, but these are the guys I think still probably haven't been traded in by a few teams. Number 1 is Tom Stewart. I think he is a must-have at this point. He's just so good. Now, there's every chance that the team's cotton on to what they're bloody doing, but he's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 500s in a row since that change in role. And the run's not looking too bad either. Like Adelaide, Freo, St Kilda, West Coast.
Those last 2 look good.
Those last 2 are awesome. Freo's been giving up points to defenders. Crows don't tag. So I think that's looking good. Nick Newman, his good run starts now.
Okay.
So he had the 100 against Port Adelaide.
Yeah.
That was a tougher matchup, and the fact that he got 100 there is good. The 70 he got against North was one of the tougher matchups for him, so they don't give up too many points to defenders, surprisingly enough. But Collingwood, Hawthorn, West Coast, and St Kilda, you've got two really green teams. Hawthorn's like a semi-green. West Coast can be solid on their day. It depends on the kind of game style that they choose to play. But no Reds in that matchup, and obviously he's got a ceiling, which we've seen.
Definitely. If you don't have Newman by round 24, he reeks of that Hail Mary.
He does, yeah.
Type thing, doesn't he? I mean, he reeked of it last year at the same time. I think
it was a bit earlier. I think he went big before this, but yeah. Sinclair, which I've mentioned a few times, I think he's good. He'd be a perfect trade in next week. I'm pretty sure they go Richmond into Geelong, I want to say. What have they got? So they got Brisbane this week. It's at Marvel. Yeah, they go Richmond into Geelong the week after. But I think he's the kind of guy you could get in and he could go solid against Brisbane anyway. And being in defence, in that defender line, like, I think it's worth the risk. Like, if you trade a Hayden Young to him, I don't think you're going to lose out much. And you've got the potential for a ceiling, especially those 2 weeks following. And then his teammate Wang.
We just love to see Wang on the screen.
We just love we love a bit of Wang on the screen. But he hasn't had the ceiling, right? He's been solid. He's been going 100. He's got 300s in a row and 99 before that. Very solid.
I just convinced you to put him on there.
Yeah, look, I mean, his numbers are good. His numbers are really good. His last 5, he's going 102, that's basically top 6.
I wish he was still playing at the Oxlongs. Love that guy.
Again, similar story. It'd be better the week after, but yeah, if you want to get him in now and start that run a bit early, it's not as good for defenders, but still solid there. Mids. A couple of big dogs here. Adam Treloar and Josh Dunkley. I think we've just got to get these boys in.
Who should I get? I've got the choice. Who am I getting?
I think it's Treloar. We've got Melbourne this week. Melbourne have sucked. They play Melbourne on Friday night. We've got 2 games on Friday night this week. Really weird. I think it's Treloar. What do you think? I mean, Treloar's averaging 111 on the season.
He's more potty than Dunkley.
112 on the season.
Yeah, I think from where I am, I think where I'm trying to get to with some wins in the league and stuff. I think Treloar is going to be less popular. So maybe it's Treloar. I
think Treloar's safer.
You reckon Treloar's safer?
Yeah,
with the tight calf a few weeks ago.
Yeah, well, apart from that, but when he plays, his floor is higher. He's not dropped below. He's dropped below 90 twice.
That's crazy, man.
Sorry, 3 times.
Imagine starting with him.
Yeah, that would have been a real random but amazing pick.
Yeah,
I think it's Treloar, but I could be convinced otherwise. There's about 17k difference, so not too much there. Dunkley is slightly cheaper. The next guy here at number 3, Noah Anderson.
Normally would not recommend.
No. It's a bit of a seesaw, but the run coming up.
Tell me.
It's the best in the game.
The best.
It's the best. West Coast. Essendon, who, if they play like last week, holy shit. Melbourne, Richmond. Richmond. Round 24.
He's a guy that can go big too when he has it his way.
Well, so... The thing is that the joke is that he scores better at home.
But he just plays shit teams at home.
Well, they win at home. Up until this week, they won at home.
Yes.
You'd expect them to beat West Coast despite it being at West Coast.
Yeah.
Well, maybe.
Well, West Coast, they're bad on the road.
West Coast, they put it up to Freo on the weekend.
I think that was a bit of derby feeling.
Yeah. Can they sustain that? Few suspensions.
But the problem is they're away for 3 of those 4.
Yeah, they're away for 3 of the 4. At Essendon. Do they beat Essendon? That's a tough.
Nah, I'm going to say no. Not away.
Melbourne at home. They beat Melbourne at home.
You'd hope so.
And they flog Richmond anywhere. So I reckon that's at least 3 out of the next 4 are wins. So if we're being conservative, they could win all 4. There's a good chance. Again, this is a bit of a Hail Mary. A bit cheaper than some of those other guys. Maybe you've already got a Treloar. Maybe you've already got a Dunkley.
Listen to this too. Just tell me, like, top of your head, Who are like our top 2 matchups for middies in terms of teams?
It's like West Coast and Richmond, basically.
Okay,
Geelong. West Coast and Geelong.
West Coast, Geelong. Collingwood's there or thereabouts.
Yeah, Collingwood's there, especially recently.
So against Geelong earlier in the year, 140.
Massive, yeah.
Against Collingwood earlier in the year, 140.
Yeah.
Have they played Richmond? Not yet. West Coast?
We played Richmond. It was like round 1, I think. Yeah. Or round 0. Sorry, round 0.
The old round 0. Not as good.
Yeah.
99. It's a long time ago. But West Coast 11. So 2 140s against those juicy kind of matchups.
And a 111.
That's appealing.
He could, over the next 4 rounds, average 120. Very, very comfortably, I could say that. He could also average 85. Sorry, it's a bit of a risk-reward pick, but I don't mind the gamble. I think it's a solid gamble. He's got that ceiling. I don't think any of those teams necessarily tag or are tagging right now.
What if you could do like Rosie to him with 20K and you've got a bit of extra cash to do your other trade?
I think I'd tick it off. I'd much rather Noah Anderson than Connor Rosie down the stretch.
Okay.
They both have the ability to go poorly, but I think the matchups and the ceiling lie within Noah Anderson. So that's probably where I'd go. And the last player I've got there is Jack Steele. Again, kind of a one that I'm projecting for 2 weeks with those. I mean, all of these St Kilda guys, they've got that good matchup. Geelong. Richmond into Geelong. So there's 2 weeks after this week against Brisbane that you could have a look at him. Sure. All right, and the forwards. Like we said before, I think we've got our 5. We've got the big 4. We've got Dylan Moore at 5. Brian Myers, I think, is solidifying himself as 6. But I still like the F7 play. I might be looking to do this myself. It might be dependent on how Grind Myers goes.
Yeah. So Simpkin goes into Richmond, West Coast.
Yeah, Richmond, West Coast.
But then if you're going to have to be forced to hold him, it gets tough after that. Bulldogs, Hawthorn.
I think this is a better play when it's the F7, right?
Yeah.
And you'd be able to loop between the two because now, like last week, they verse each other, so you couldn't loop between the two. That is Geelong versus North. But this week, North play first. They play at 1:45, so you can have a look at Simpkin. If he goes shit, you can go into Myers. Or you can wait and have a look at Myers and go into someone like a Charlie Curnow, who I've got at 3. He just put up a ton. Now, they didn't have Mackay there. Was out with illness, so I think he should be back. But he's a weapon, man. He floats back. Like he goes back at the end of quarters and stuff like that. So he's got the ability to go big. And Tom Powell.
Oh, no.
Who saw this coming?
Oh, no.
Well, I think Warney actually traded him out to Mason Wood. So he would have fisted me even harder. But 120. What do you have? 123 or something like that?
122.
122.
Coming off a good 40. No wonder Warney traded him. Coming off a 40.
Yeah, he's been dog shit. But obviously you've got the injury to Fisher and Colby.
Yeah.
And he played the halfback, took kick-ins, did everything. And his teammate Jaden Stevenson. Now, this one was flagged by the great man Selby. Shout out to Selby and Moreira's Magic Season Guide. Check it out if you haven't already. I could never have done it, but the team who's in first place has Jaden Stevenson.
Nice.
In his team.
Probably in first place because he's listening to Selby and not us.
Yeah, fuck, maybe I should do that.
Move.
Well, how long? We don't know. At the time of recording, we're looking at the AFL website, which is terrible injury reporting. It's fucking shit.
7 days old.
Update your shit, AFL. Like, they were named out injured, and they're not here. Anyway, I digress. I don't know how long they're out for, but if they're not there again, could you consider trading in Tom Powell, trading in Jaden Stevenson?
Going into Richmond and West Coast, there's some serious consideration for it. Yeah, I think you really could entertain it. Would you go there as your F6? There's obviously the ability to...
The other thing is they're both so cheap. Like, it is so easy to get there. Like, getting someone like a Billy Dowling to him, like, I could do that and then still upgrade someone else.
Yeah.
So it's definitely something I could look for if those players aren't there. If they're back, they're not. It's less exciting, but definitely something to watch for in the team sheets because I think Stevenson also had been sent back to the VFL to train in that role as well as like a bit of an option.
Okay.
What I heard on the commentary. So they've done a bit of like an Alex Sexton sort of situation there. So see how it goes. I don't know if Fisher walks back into that team either because he's not necessarily part of their future. I wouldn't have thought. I think it's Colby the main one. Like if Colby's there,
it probably hurts.
Yeah, I think that's the main one we've got to look out for. But any other sort of like Hail Mary forwards that you like the look of as like a bit of an F7 play, potential ceiling. There was a moment when Sean Darcy was a bit sore on the weekend.
Yeah.
We were watching him and we went, okay.
What's Luke Jackson going to do?
Let's look at Luke Jackson. But he did play out the game, but looked a bit sore there at times.
Yeah, for me, that position could just be a revolving door. Like, if you get to the point where you're happy with the rest of your team, it could, for the remaining 3-4 weeks, it could end up being trade in and out at your leisure.
Yeah.
But I definitely like the idea of having a look at those North Melbourne boys, depending on what happens with the teams.
Someone else who's been really good, actually, is my boy, who we talked about at the start of the year, Connor McDonald. He's been really good the last few rounds. He's gone 110, 86, 64, 90, 103 in his last 5. So only one score below 80 in that time. And the last 2 rounds of the year, he goes Richmond, North Melbourne. The final 2 matchups of the round.
Leading up to that, not quite as good.
Not as good in the next 2 rings,
someone,
Giants and Carlton. But maybe someone just to put a little star next to his name and have a look at the end of the year because obviously, I mean, he's a gun. And he has a bit of the Dylan Morse about him, just gets up the ground and, kicks goals, but also collects the marks and tackles. So someone to keep an eye on. So a lot of names to think about there. Obviously, this time of the year, it's a bit of a dart throw, it feels like. So we'll crunch the numbers, see if we can come up with a consolidated and concise list. And we've got to work on these captains, Luke, because they've been letting me down. I've been getting 118s.
I don't have to work on them.
Well, I've been letting me down. I've been letting... well, I didn't let the others down because others had Tristan Sherry last week. I just was a fucking idiot that didn't. But back-to-back 118s when everyone else is getting 145s, 155s is killing me. It's killing me.
Yeah.
Who do you have in the Content Creators Cup?
Oh, I thought we were going to have each other at one point.
I was
I think I've got Jep.
kind of hoping we would, but then I was nah. You got Jep?
You were scared of me. That's why you said no.
Yeah, I was. No, I want us both to be. I want Mitch in the finals, mate.
That'd be cool. You're taking on Warney gotcha, Ken Roy getcha.
Back-to-back traders.
Back-to-back, yeah.
Oh, I don't know, man. I'm out of form.
Yeah, and Roy and Warney are both in form. So Roy's, mate, he's still on that hat chase, isn't he?
Absolutely still on that hatchet. I feel sorry, just to finish off the podcast, I feel sorry for Roy because the fucking song that they wrote for him, talk about a moz, mate. Talk about a moz.
Is it worse than the moz? Do you think? Where does it sit?
It's worse than your kissed bloody number plate moz. That hit me hard for 1 week.
It was a good moz.
But they keep playing this song, at least in bits on the podcast, and I don't know, that pressure, I couldn't handle a fucking song about me winning a hat being played 6 weeks before the end of the season. That's
I'm backing him in, I reckon.
That's a stitch up. If he gets it done, that's very big props to you, big dog. Yeah, it's a tough spot to be in. That was me a couple of years ago when I had my 123 year. Just could not crack that top 100. It was rough, so hard spot to be in. So hopefully the man gets it done. But I have him... Hopefully he gets it done, but I'll pip him this week. So make sure you check us out on Friday. We'll be going live. And if you have any questions between now and then, get over to askmeonq, spelled QU.com/ballboys. That's askmeonq.com/ballboys to get your questions answered in there. And like this video, give it a big thumbs up, subscribe. We'll see you guys next time. Bye.